This is a quick summary of Skinner, Chapter 11, The Self and Others. So he starts off by saying the science of behavior studies the human organism, but it doesn't really look at the person or the self. And different contingencies create different personalities. He says that every person is unique with their own genetic makeup and personal history. So no person is going to behave the same way. So the next section is knowing oneself. And he starts off with saying contingencies produce a knowing self. And when we behave, we do it without knowing of it. Different verbal communities explain to us and others about ourselves. So it tells us if we're introverted or extroverted, and if we act impulsively without thinking, or if we act with thinking and act upon consequences. He says psychoanalysis allows a person to get a good image of themselves. It allows one to explore their feelings. So a person has to learn their emotions. The patient is to learn to feel his own emotions, to acknowledge feelings associated with punished behavior. And he says we may feel lost in our identity sometimes when the contingencies change. So the verbal community will ask us, why do we feel that way, instead of how do you feel, because it will give us more answers. And it is very important to recognize the reasons for our behaviors for good self-management. He says we have to know about other behaviors well to better understand ourselves. So the next section is knowing another person. And he starts off with saying discovering how one thinks and feels is part of learning what they are or who they're gonna be. And the first step is to make contact. So it's very important to share feelings. And he said we understand another person from their expression of their feelings. So he says it's easier to know what another person is feeling if he communicates his feelings verbally. And he says a technique for communicating feelings is to describe a situation which arouses a same feeling. And then he goes into saying we try to figure out people's feelings for many different reasons, and our behavior is reinforced, so we act to reinforce our loved ones because of what they're gonna do in return for us. It may seem that we need to first find reasons of feelings. However, he says a person feels feelings depends on the behavior and upon their conditions. We can deal with these without examining feelings. So first, to help person first change how they act, which will then affect how they feel. And he says, knowing another person is knowing what they do, what they already did, or what they will do, and their genetic makeup and environment, which are the result of what they did something. It's difficult because we don't have all the facts and each person is different and our knowledge of a person is limited. The next section is about managing oneself. So he says it's a matter of changing a situation until a response happens which solves a problem. It's often represented as a direct manipulation of feelings, so a person has to change his mind, and this will change his world. A well-known technique of self-management is to arrange a situation where there's little to interfere with a behavior. and the goal of self-management is self-fulfillment. He says achievement and discovering positive reinforcers. When techniques of self-management are learned, the verbal community may no longer be needed, and a behavior resulting from good self-management is more effective and reinforced in other ways. And his next section is managing another person. So, managing others is like managing yourself. It's not by changing feelings or states of mind. It's changing their behaviors, which will change their world, which will change their feelings. Changing behaviors by emotional and motivational measures, teaching, helping, and entertaining is all doing something good for someone. It's going to strengthen their behaviors. So it's all reinforcing, and it will all help manage another person. And his last thing is the self and others. And here he says people learn to control others easier than they can control themselves. And they do this by changing environments. The control of others leads to good self-management. So my two questions are, do you think knowing others will help you self-manage? And do you think changing a person's actions first will affect their feelings more than working towards changing their feelings first, which will affect their behaviors? Thank you.